Hey everybody, GMCG here, back with another tutorial video, and this time I'm doing sculpting. If you've been paying attention to my channel or checking out my videos, you'll know I've been sculpting for an hour every day for the past 12 days as of this recording, I think. And it's been great. I've really learned a lot, I've improved a lot, and anyone who wants to get good at sculpting should sculpt every day. As I've learned from many of my, uh, I guess, well, not mentors, but it would be amazing if they were my mentors, like Yansculpts and um, Zach. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I will look that up. Link both their channels in the description of this video. Anyway, um, so I guess to start, I want to mention that I am using a drawing display, Wacom Cintiq. And I totally recommend you have a drawing display or a drawing tablet on your desk, because sculpting with a mouse is just no, not for me. I wouldn't recommend it. Um, but you can get like a Huion one, or a Wacom, just simple drawing tablet for your desk for anywhere from like 50 to $100. It's not cheap for everybody. Certainly the Cintiqs are really expensive. I could never afford this. I just have really amazing friends, and they decided to get me this as a kind of a graduation gift, I think. Kind of. Um, anyway, moving on, let's get into sculpting. So there's a couple ways to get there. Um, Make sure your object that you want to sculpt is selected. You can just hit Tab. Oh, make sure Blender is actually selected. Hit Tab, and then you can go into Sculpt mode. And we are now in sculpting. But there is a much easier way and a better way of doing this. So let me go back to object mode. See all these tabs up here? These are different workspaces. And if we hit the sculpting one, boom, it's sort of changes all of these settings here to get rid of extraneous things you don't need. You can go further and turn even more off if you want. Just turn off everything. It also adds a matte cap to the model, which is awesome. You don't have to go through all these settings to do that, but you still can, because there's lots of other options of different matte caps you can choose. Like this is the default one. I like this one, and these two are cool as well. They're nice to sculpt characters and faces, but we'll stick with the default. So basically these workspaces just kind of change all the settings to make it easier and faster to get to sculpting. So I recommend using those. And they're new to 2.8, so more awesomeness for this version. Alright, so on the left side here we have all of our different brushes. I will go over the ones I use the most. Not, they're not the ones you should use, they're just the ones I use. But in a bit. You can turn this little panel off by hitting the T key, and anyone who's used Blender for a while will know, sort of the tool panel, I think it used to be called, or maybe it still is. You can also, right now, this is as minimized as it can be, so it's just these little simple icons, and you hover over and it tells you what they are, but it also will tell you over here once it's selected. But you can drag it out here. I can get there we go. There's like one tick, two ticks, and then you can do, I don't know why you would ever want that, but you can have it like this so that you have all the names right away. You don't have to go looking, and that's probably good for beginners while they're still learning the shortcuts and they're still trying to memorize what the icons are. I think some of these icons, or at least I could be totally wrong, but I think these icons are new for 2.8. So even I was coming from 2.78, I think was the last version I was using, and quite a few things have changed, and I think these icons did, but I'd have to look. I was not prepared for this apparently. But I keep it like this because it gives me the most screen real estate. and I have basically sort of figured out which ones are which, and I am trying to memorize the shortcuts. I know the ones I use the most anyway. Up here, another new addition to 2.8 is this context-sensitive menu, I guess menu bar, and it's amazing. In previous versions, also in this T panel, you would have all of these settings too, and you'd have to scroll and scroll and scroll and do little drop-down arrows to find the thing you wanted. And now it's all right here, easy to find, no menu digging. Well, there's a little bit, but I don't really use these anyway. So yeah. And then here is all of those same menus, the tool options, I guess. Again, but you get a little bit more permanence, I guess. That it's not a drop down as much as it is just like a menu here you can always refer to. It's right there. But I guess this is too. I don't know. It's another place you can look. It's a little more detailed, I guess, because it actually, instead of little icons, you've got descriptions and things. So yeah. Moving on. Let's go into more detail of this stuff here. So I think it always defaults to the draw brush, so you can see right here, got that. There's all these different options. So add and subtract. So adding, I'm going to actually turn on dynamic topology, but I will explain that in a second. Sort of adds geometry to the, or I guess layers on geometry to whatever you're sculpting. If you go to subtract, it takes away. So it'll kind of create cavities and things like that. But I never use that because you can just draw normal. Oh, go back to add. Draw normally, or hold control and you do the same thing and it starts subtracting. So you can draw normally, and then holding control will do the opposite of whatever normal is for that brush. And that is very quick and easy. You never have to worry about these menus. Front faces only. This is really useful if you have a really thin object and you're sculpting. Let me see. Why don't I do just let's see, we'll make this really thin. Now I'm going to use the inflate brush. And I'm still on, and we will inflate. Oh, wasn't that enough? Okay. Let's try that again. Really thin, like that. Now it should do. Yeah, I did not have it turned on already. Now, if inflate brush, do this like this. See, look, it kind of affected the other side as well, and you pretty much never want that. So if you turn on front faces only, now it is unaffected, so you don't have to worry about that. So that is a really important thing to know. It's generally, I don't know, I don't sculpt things like this very often. And if it was like a relief type thing, like it was going to be a sculpture against a wall, it wouldn't really matter because you wouldn't see this side anyway. But anyway, good to know. 2D fall off, I don't bother with that. Accumulate, so this, it tries to simulate like if you have, it's too low resolution to even show you. If you have a type, if you were building clay up on an object in a real sculpture, you could see those layers until you smooth them out, and that sort of gives you that same effect. It also, if you sculpt and sculpt, it sort of builds more, which I think if you turn this off, on. Doesn't really affect that brush that much. Let's try the clay brush. Oh, let's do it without first. So, okay, like that, and then we turn it on. Yeah, no, I think it's just too low. This is too low resolution to really notice what it's supposed to be doing. But you know, that can be useful in certain situations. The other thing that I am always using is dynamic topology, which is this menu here. So let's go back. Nope. Object mode, and we are going to delete this. I put in another cube. So you know, this is just a simple, really low res cube. Let's go into sculpting. Turn dynamic topology back on. So what this is doing is it's subdividing your objects as it is needed. So to create the detail that you're trying to sculpt, you obviously can't do it with that low res cube. So it adds all of this geometry for you as you're sculpting. I think it is, there's some sort of algorithm that is based off of the pixels and the screen space and the edges and math and stuff. Yeah, I don't get it. But yeah, it's really awesome now. If you go back into object mode, you can see, look, all of this is really low resolution, but here is very high resolution relatively, because in order to get the detail that I was trying to sculpt, it needed it. It needed all of these verts and edges and things. So dynamic topology is really awesome when you're just doing sculpting a character or want to concept something really quickly. Dynamic topology is amazing. This is completely, like, this topology is disgusting. Like, you can't UV this, really. You'll have to retopologize it in order to, you know, texture it and all that stuff and animate it later. I mean, nothing you'll do that with this cube, but like a character. But it's really great for, you know, just still renders of things. You know, if you're just going to sculpt a bust of a character and you're not planning on texturing it, dynamic topology is amazing. But you can always just retopologize it, so use it however. Let's go back into, no, we go this way. Workspaces better. There's more to these settings here. So we'll turn it on again. So subdivide collapse with relative detail set. It's basically going, depending on how close you are to the objects, it will divide or subtract. So right now, if I come in, it's going to divide it and make it more because I'm relatively closer. So the equation is changing. Oh, geez, I don't want that. The equation is changing, and so things get much finer. If I zoom out, because I have subdivide collapse set up, it's actually going to collapse a lot of that geometry that I added, because from this distance, that is the relative detail setting I have, which I don't like and I don't really use. I like constant detail. So I have a specific resolution value here, and no matter how close or far away from the object I am, it is constant, and that is what I use all the time because I don't want to have to worry that I sculpt all this detail when I'm in close and then I go in for a big pass far away and I can just collapse all of that detail. Not cool at all. And it's even got a little eyedropper so it can see, so this detail level is 4.99, and then I can sculpt in that same level here and zoom out and still sculpting with that same level of resolution. So that's really nice, and that is what I use all the time. You can turn on smooth shading here because when you switch into sculpting mode, just the object smooth shading doesn't work anymore, it turns that off. So that is how you can achieve that here. There is also just subdivide edges or just collapse edges. I don't really bother with that, though I see they can be very useful. I just stick with subdivide collapse and constant detail. There's also manual detail and brush detail. I have not played with those. Oh, I did not know you could do that, and now I'm really sad I did. Okay. Symmetry lock. So you'll notice that everything is being mirrored on this object. By default, it is mirroring on the x-axis, and that's generally how I have it. You can change it to the y or the z-axis or z-axis, whatever you want, but you can even turn it off if you want to do something asymmetrical, obviously. So that is where you do that. It's also up here in this menu, which is nice. Okay, so I think that covers all of the basics. Let's get into all of the brushes I use. So I am pretty much, when I want to sculpt some kind of hard detail, I will use the draw brush, clay to build up form, and the clay strips. Those are both great for that. Inflate, if I have something that is like too thin and I want to quickly add a bunch of volume, I will use that a lot. The crease brush, essential. I'm going to turn my detail up quite a bit, and now basically it gives you the ability to create little creases into your object like this. And I use this when I'm making the mouth, the eyes, nose, everything. And also the pinch brush, which is really useful for other those same purposes. And you'll see that it's adding geometry here. Really, really dense, fine geometry, because I upped my resolution detail here. I'd never mentioned that. You can just either type it in a value, or you can just click and drag to adjust this. And you'll kind of start, I tend to start low, and then as I sort of work my way around the model and do as much as I can with the resolution I have, I add a little bit more and add a little bit more, and keep layering on detail as I go. The grab brush, obviously, that is probably the first tool that I will use for anything. Just lets you grab and move things. And the snake hook, I think it's called. So, yeah, snake hook tool. This is great. Oh man, my computer is really slowing down. I'm going way too high res here. Let's dumb this down a bit. Okay. You can just click and drag off little things like this, which is kind of how I do the neck or the arms on a character. Oh look, isn't that weird looking? And those are the main brushes I use. Also smooth, but I never really select the brush because you can hold shift and then it smooths. So I almost never actually select the brush. I just hold shift while I'm working and it does that. Perfect. And you can affect shift, I find too strong a lot of times, so I will lower the strength down to like 0.2 or something, so it doesn't destroy my details and things I've been working on at much lower resolutions. Like when it's this high, it doesn't destroy it as much, but like it affects lower res things very strongly. Okay, so that is it for part 1. I think I'll do a part 2, and I'll go over more of the brushes and, you know, I guess my process, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.